is the Q&A for Bryers Cucumber Tostinos. And here's director Christopher Hall. It's a pleasure to have you. It's a pleasure to have this film in the festival. This is coming right after the screening, so we don't have to worry about spoilers or anything. But I would have said to the audience, if we were in the theater and I was starting this Q&A in the theater, I'd say, you guys probably don't know this, but this film is so funny that it gets funnier every time you watch it. I've watched it multiple times for festival jury purposes, but then I also watch it showing it to the 13-year-old. I watch it showing it to the 48-year-old lady in my house. And
wow, thanks.
I just, and it's the kind of, it may seem absurdist and silly, which it rightfully is, earns that absurdist comedy title. But it's such a great world. You actually do such great world building, and that it gets funnier the more time you spend in this world. So,
wow, thanks. That is such a huge compliment. I mean, that's really exactly the kind of goal that we set out for. You know, it's like on the one hand, really always kind of keeping funniness as our goal number one, and making sure this is really something that is making people laugh, but also kind of establishing a little bit of this, you know, world of the store, this weird kind of world, and these characters that live in it. And I think, you know, among the people that kind of worked on this behind the scenes, I think establishing this, you know, little group of people and characters that come in and out of this world, you know, we just really had so much fun with figuring out, you know, that dynamic and how we could make it funny and weird and kind of believable, but kind of not, you know. That was really a lot of our ambition.
And based on what I read on the submission platform, Film Freeway, so you worked with the lead actor, who is superb. Like if he wasn't credited as a writer, I would have definitely, part of the Q&A, hands would have gone up and people would have said, how did you find this actor who is so perfect for this character? Because
yeah,
he walks that line perfectly between being completely ridiculous and empathetic.
Yeah. So Patrick and I worked together at a production company, like I want to say 5 years ago, and we just kind of hit it off. You know, he has this very odd sense of humor that is really unique and is kind of not for everybody, but I just think he's hilarious. And, you know, he started acting and performing in a kind of sketch comedy group in Santa Monica. And I started going to see it every once in a while. You know, this is the pre-pandemic days, but it was just kind of like a little theater in a back alley in Santa Monica. And he, for whatever reason, not only would he just kill it and have the audience just in tears of laughter every night, but also they were getting some of the best audiences. You know, you could see they were packing this bar every night that they were performing. And I sat down with him one night after and I said, you know, I got to do a project with you. You know, you are so great, so funny. You're just killing it right now. And I want to take an idea from one of your sketches and turn it into a short. And we just kind of like ran with it, basically, you know. So he had this very, you know, ridiculous sketch that was always kind of a very SNL kind of sketch comedy. Like, you couldn't really sustain it for more than a couple minutes on a stage. But I had a friend who was like a TV writer, and we brought, you know, the three of us into a room together, and we spent like a good 6 months, I think, really thinking about how to stretch it out, how to kind of make it a little bit more of a, you know, kind of believable and empathetic, and, you know, a character who's really funny and weird, but also has like a little humanity and depth to him. And, I think that was really what we were going for. And Patrick was able to bring in, some of his actors from his troupe. Kevin Pollak is kind of like one of their, patrons or whatever, and just mentors them. And so he was, on board from the beginning and said he would participate. And then we went scouting around in the valley and needed to find kind of like a dumpy market that we could use. And almost immediately we just found this place that screamed like, this is so perfect. It's like, 70 years old, and it feels like right out of a time capsule. So much of it has like not been cleaned for 70 years. And just filled with kind of odd knickknacks. And when you have a great idea and a great cast and a great location, the rest just kind of falls into place. I didn't almost like, I don't need to be a genius to make this turn out great. You have those ingredients, and it just lands. So I did have a great DP, a cinematographer who I worked with before, Rachel Dusa, who is just one of my favorite people to work with. Super cool, super chill, but also has just an amazing kind of palette of technique and an ability to really set an actor up for success, so that they're really able to kind of have the, space they need to perform just right and still look great, have a really cinematic look to it. So I think, beyond that, I'm just lucky to have all those people in my corner, really.
For sure. And the look is great. I mean, it looks, if it were a pilot, and I'm going to ask you eventually, is this a pilot? Because obviously I would love, and I'm sure hands would be going up in the theater, people saying, yeah, we want more Bryers. But your job directing, it's easy to say you had all the right pieces, but comedy, I mean, a lot of comedy is funny on the page and it's funny on the set, and then you get in that editing room and it's been lost. So you did a great job directing this.
Thank you.
And you and your editor, all the jokes land perfectly. We're always in the right frame for comedy, of seeing the faces a lot, because actually I think Patrick's face is a big chunk of what carries this film. I mean, the charisma that he is putting out. I mean, I don't want to blow smoke up his ass, but I felt like I was
He'll
watching.
He'll take it.
Good,
me.
because honestly, like, when I talk about this with people, I've, whenever a jury member submits their sheet and they give this one a high rating, I'm like, yeah, right on, let's talk about it. And the great comedic leads of absurdist comedy, the Jim Carreys and the Steve Martins, like, come up because he's taking a completely insane character and never breaking character, and just and you want to hang out with him permanently. Like, if I were one of the regular customers, I would love talking to Bryers as I go through, because he's the guy who, if he invites you to crawl through his little tunnel and you say, are you going to kill me? And he goes, do you want me to kill you? He just doesn't have the tools,
He is such a outstanding performer. I mean, I cannot kind of give him enough praise. And I think finding that balance of just like weirdness and silliness, but also not kind of like going into a place where you're making fun of the character. He loves this character, in a way. And I think you see that in every single shot. He is this kind of odd person who just really doesn't kind of fit in the normal world, and yet is also so lovable and sweet. And and just kind of like doesn't understand the nuances and seriousness and weirdness of the real world. Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely spent a little time kind of rehearsing it and kind of working out the details of the performance. I think, you're talking about how he kind of keeps his performance consistent throughout the movie. And, it's not a short, it's kind of like a longer short. So I think that was something that really took a little bit of, our attention, just making sure that we're keeping his tone kind of consistent throughout that. But man, I mean, he just nails it, and he is so funny in person, so funny. He just lights up when the camera is on him, and he's the kind of person I think could easily have one of those kind of great comedy careers, and is just kind of waiting to be discovered. So I felt really just like thrilled to work with him on something like this.
And you said there was a rehearsal period, so I would assume someone who works out on stage a lot would have really gotten. I assume your cast got a lot out of that period.
Well, we had, I think the rehearsal period was primarily for um, our two kind of leads, Patrick and Maggie, were really the ones who we spent the most time with working in rehearsal. And, they have some kind of moments of like intimacy and awkwardness. And I think we just wanted to work through those so that they felt, kind of just the right amount of awkward, and not veering into kind of like gross. you know I mean, look, I'm a director who worked in theater for a long time and loves the rehearsal process. I think that process of spending time in a rehearsal is kind of what the director job is to me in some ways, and is, kind of one of those things where if you're not really able to spend time in rehearsal, then you're missing a huge part of what the opportunity to be a director really is. And so I just love that process. And in some ways, getting to make this movie was just my opportunity to do that again in a world where, working in the business in Hollywood, you almost never get a real rehearsal process, in your schedule. You almost never really have that time where you're able to kind of work with actors without all of the hustle and bustle and the ticking clock and all of that. So this just felt like a gift, and to be able to make that time and get those people to show up and be there, man, it was just so satisfying and so much of a kind of return to the things that I, fell in love with this whole process, this whole business, in the first place. And doing the rehearsals was just, we just had a blast. It was so fun.
Sounds like you made all the right decisions you gave this project as director and a producer. You did everything it took to give it the best chance to be as good as it can be. And actually, you mentioned Maggie. Yeah, so Maggie Mae Fish as Mallory might be. I don't want to discount her performance at all, because he's on a level of absurdity that her character, I imagine, is she from the sketch troupe, or did you guys cast her?
No, she's not from the sketch troupe, but I did another short about a year previous, and I had a director who had worked with her, and I think she's done a lot of kind of comedy stuff, and she was a part of a really kind of well-known web series type thing. So she's definitely a performer, experienced performer who has worked in comedy a lot.
Yeah, because she comes in, and her performance and her character on the page, she's on the page, Mallory's the perfect balance for Bryers. And then her performance, she knocks it out of the park. She's she is as funny as he is in a completely different way. So
I think we just like lit on this idea really early on in the process of like writing this out, to say that the perfect kind of female foil for Bryers is somebody who just digs his weirdness, and somebody who just finds his weirdness like to be the thing that they are, into. And, it didn't have to be something that became romantic and kind of, sexual, but the fact that she is the only person really who enjoys his weirdness, just makes them such a perfect kind of match for each other. And, Maggie is just a great actor who I feel really like just comes in and nails it, just doesn't need a lot of kind of pushing or prodding to do the right thing. She just, naturally has the right instincts.
I need
Wait,
your
I need a minute.
magnifying glass.
it's actually probably adds to the Q&A to have a 9-year-old pop in and like that. I actually think it's perfect.
Great.
Yeah, I mean the whole cast is great. Obviously Kevin comes in. I mean, if people don't know, I happen to know as a comedy fan. I mean, that guy started out doing stand-up, not a stranger to sketch. So it's great to hear that he's supportive of the back alley. I think I've been to that theater in the alley between 3rd and 4th Street.
Yeah.
It's great to hear that he was supportive of them, not just on stage, but of the next step of one of their ideas.
Well, Kevin was really like our dream get for this thing. And I think we kind of had this idea of like, let's put this sketch together, and we created a role that we thought maybe could be an opportunity for to get a real actor, quote unquote. And Kevin was always somebody that we just kind of penciled into that slot, like, oh, maybe he'll agree to do it. That would be a dream come true. And then he said yes, and we just kind of, from there, it just all fell into place. He's a busy guy. He's working on an Emmy-winning show, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So in addition to just kind of like being an amazingly funny person, he's also, still incredibly successful and still kind of like killing it in the working world. So we did not have a lot of time with him, and really we moved our whole schedule around to make sure that we could, accommodate him in there and squeeze him into the time that we had. But, he's just somebody who, you get in these directing jobs, you get some people who know the job better than you do, and you kind of just have to like step back and let them do their thing. And, Kevin Pollak is one of those people who's, he was one of the stars of A Few Good Men. He's been in some of like my favorite movies of all time. And it was just kind of like, pinch me in those moments where you're working with someone like that. It's just, it was like a dream come true to have somebody like that just step onto your set.
And you brought up working the schedule around him. Hands always go up in the theater. I'm pretending we're in the theater again. And I'm sure one of your fellow filmmakers, because this film looks so good.
Yeah.
How long was principal photography?
We had 2 days in this market, and honestly, we got so lucky finding this market that would agree to let us take over their place. And we paid them a little money, but not much. And the gentleman who owned this place was so cool and great to work with, and just made our experience great there. I could not recommend his place enough if you're looking for a kind of down and dirty market. And so, that was a huge part of it. And then I had a friend who has like a stage where we designed the little hovel. And I had a production designer, a woman, Caitlin Sachs, who I hadn't worked with before this project, but Caitlin just came in and built this like, dream kind of world that it was like a very vague, rough idea that I pitched her, and she just killed it, So that just became a huge part, I think, of the like weirdness of this character's psyche, and to be able to see him, in another dimension of where he really lived, I think added so much to seeing him as a real person. And the picture of his mom that's actually like a picture that you get with a frame and has his own face cut out on top of it. So many of those details were just like just funny, just as the art direction alone. And it's not, I think, often that you get a production designer, a set designer who's really like, setting you up for success that much and making your job of making things funny that much easier, So anyway, to answer your question, we had about 2.5 days, and we packed a lot into those days. We were just cranking away, but it was so much fun to make.
Yeah, I mean, you did not shoot this. You didn't go for fast, cheap, and simple, because there's cover. I think in my mind's eye, there's coverage everywhere. There's not a lot of oneers. Those must have been really busy days, because to get a 15+ minute short done in 2.5 days, it's a lot of work. And I imagine you had a decent sized crew, or a little smaller.
I mean, we had just enough crew to get it done. It's really, we had a very bare bones crew, but everybody who was there just kind of like, killed it. And we had a small kind of G&E department. We had a hair and makeup person. We had, just enough people to really kind of like get through this very ambitious schedule. And I think, the coverage was one of those things where I just knew, having done some comedy, that coverage is key to being able to make those jokes really land, to be able to make the timing kind of fast enough and snappy enough. And I just didn't want it to be something that felt like we just didn't put enough time or money into it to make it work. I've done shorts before that just felt like, oh, if you just spent a little more time, if you just put in a little bit more money, this would have been so much better. And I think, looking back, I think everybody wants to make the cheapest possible short. And I think there's a goal a lot of times in the industry to say, if you can make a short for $100, then you're really successful. But it just doesn't take, that much more money to really make something that just is great and really you can be proud of. You don't have to spend, $1 million or even $100,000 to really have something that you can walk away with and say, this is really what I wanted it to be. And with a little bit of sweat and elbow grease, I think we were able to put in just enough crew, just enough time in the budget to get a product that really, worked.
For sure. And you have a product. So now comes, and I know people in the audience would ask this. So now comes the question of, is this the start of something, or is this just a self-contained story that ends? But is this something that you're going to shop around and post-COVID hope to I don't know. I don't know why I'm biased towards TV series versus feature, but either one would be cool.
I mean, like that would be a dream come true for us. I think, we had one of our kind of main comedy touchstones for this that we referenced a lot was Last Man on Earth, that had a really kind of weird sense of humor about it, but just every time I watch it made me laugh. And I think, if I was pitching this to a TV executive, I think we could really fill the void of a show like that. Who knows with TV and movies? I think I've worked a little bit in the business and done some pitching, and it's just kind of like catching a lightning bolt. You got to just be just in the right place at the right time, and if it happens, it's the ride of your life. And if it doesn't happen, you just got to keep trying. So yeah, I mean, I think we would all love to pitch this as a TV show or as a movie. I think it would be, there's a lot of reasons why you could go either way, but yeah, that's the dream come true for us, for sure.
And as yet, you haven't. The three main writers haven't sat down and sort of thought out what it would be in either direction. You're just. I mean, it sounds like you're just really happy with what you did.
Well, I think we were happy with what we did. We haven't really kind of had any serious interest from people in getting a pitch together for a longer thing. And we're still in that phase of just showing it at festivals and trying to build an audience of people who like it. And I think if we had an executive or an agent or whatever who said they want to help us make it, I think we'd all, sit down immediately and try to hammer that out. But yeah, I think the three of us who were kind of the creative, idea force behind it, have all, worked in the business for a little bit and would love to kind of put a pitch like that together. That would be just a dream come true. And I think we just have to find the right kind of producer who wants to, make something weird like this with us.
Weird but funny. Funny is weird. Weird works for funny. Well, I've definitely played. I don't mean to play favorites because I can't wait for you to see Grade A, the film that comes after Bryers, Cucumber, Tostinos. I think they're both
Nice.
Absurdly hilarious films, and I think I was more disciplined about keeping his Q&A to 15. So my apologies that because there's no timer in Zoom, so if I don't look at the clock, I don't know how long we've gone, but we might have gone a little long. So I was going to ask you that question of, is there anybody who needs a thank you who didn't come up yet?
I mean, there are a number of people who have just helped us make this movie great. My family, my wife, my parents, my kids. My son actually had a role that got cut from the final edit as the young Bryers Cucumber who got left in the market. So there's just a lot of people who helped to make it great. But the crew as a whole it just felt like a family getting together again of people who were so psyched to work on something like this. And I just have to say thank you to all of the cast, all of the crew who just killed it. And I'm so thrilled to have all of them be a part of it. It was a dream come true, really, to make a movie like this.
And it makes people at film festivals really happy when you're watching hundreds of films and then you come across one that is this good.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for submitting it. I say it too often during these Q&As, but if you've ever sat through like 10, 15 bad shorts in a row and you start to think the festival this year is going to be the worst year ever, and then you see good ones and it totally lifts your spirits. So very proud of all the films in, and yours is one of them, and thank you for submitting.
Thank you so much. We're really thrilled to be part of the show, the festival.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm going to stop recording.
All right.